Well. All I can say is, what's up guys? My name is Jack Wright, known as Jackpot Button Lewis on YouTube. And after a long time away from this series, I'm finally back to do another episode on my theatre blog series, once again known as Theatregoing. Once again, like I said, my name is Jack Wright, known as Jackpot Button Lewis on YouTube. And I know it's been quite a while since I've done one of these. I know I have to thoroughly apologise, first of all, for being away from this series for a while. And there's a reason why that I haven't been, of course, doing any of these videos, or, of course, my video blog series of Theatregoing for a long time. And it's because I haven't had the chance to go and see many shows of recently this year, which I know is a bit of a shame. But I know I've been busy with a load of things, it's not just, of course, including me doing a load of shows, of course, which I normally do in my spare time. I am going to tell you about something that I am doing quite recently, but I will tell you a bit more about that later on in this episode, for all of you if you're interested. But anyway, of course, like I said, welcome once again to another episode of my theatre blog series, the second series, I should say, of course, Theatregoing. And if you might not remember what happened, of course, well, I couldn't even remember, of course, the last time that I actually, what I did in the last episode. It was so long time ago, but I do remember that I think the last thing that I did, I went to see, of course, very famous New Zealander actress, well, I wouldn't say actress, I was going to say actor, of course, Russell Crowe, with his very famous, of course, folk / rock band, well, or any, I can't exactly say what other genres of music his band normally covers, but there, of course, were Indoor Garden Party, and I went to see them perform live at the Union Chapel in London just over a year ago, would you believe? I know it's been that long, but like I said already, it has been a long time since I have, of course, done one of these episodes, and I want to get back to what I really love best, and that is, of course, musical theatre. And since this is going to be quite a long episode, but of course, one episode, I should say, that I've been waiting to do for such a long time, and I am really, of course, raring to go with, of course, today's musical that I am going to not just talk about, but also go and see and also review it as well. And that is, of course, let's once again focus on today's episode. And today's episode, I am talking about one of the most highly anticipated musicals, brand new musicals, fresh from, of course, Broadway, all across all the other stateside in America. And it's, of course, based on one of the most famous, of course, cult films of the 1980s that was quite famous, obviously, back in its day. And this year marks its 30th anniversary this year. Would you believe that? That is incredible, isn't it? And, of course, even though it's got quite a dark theme around it, for most parts of course, of the film, because I did watch it earlier on today, just to, of course, refresh myself of what it's all about. And, of course, you wouldn't believe, as, of course, over the last few years, I can't remember who wrote it, but someone had the bright idea of turning that musical, of course, well, I was going to say turning the film into a musical. That's what I meant to say. I don't know why I said it first, because it wasn't a musical before it was a film, even though that I have actually seen musicals turned into films. But normally it's been the other way around with most, of course, film musicals as of recently, with ones like, obviously, The Greatest Showman, and also Mamma Mia, of course, Here We Go Again, and loads of others. But anyway, let me, of course, talk about the most highly anticipated West End, of course, new West End production of one of the most famous musicals based off the very famous film of Heathers, and that is Heathers the Musical.
September 1st, 1989. Dear Diary. I look around at these kids I've known all my life and wonder what happened.
Honey, what you waiting for? Welcome to my candy store. You just gotta prove you're not a pussy anymore. And step into my candy store.
Freeze your brain, suck on that straw, get lost in the pain. Happiness comes when everything numbs. Who needs cocaine? Freeze your brain.
Tonight I'm yours, I'm a dead girl. Get on all fours, kiss this dead girl.
Yep, that's right, folks. Of course, as you just saw there, that of course was the official West End trailer for, of course, Heathers the Musical. And as you did see, of course, throughout the trailer, there's been so much, of course, love, and also, of course, the reviews for this show have been off the hook since, of course, it made its, of course, first ever performance at the Other Palace, which was originally, of course, if you might remember, it used to be formerly known as the St James Theatre when I went to see, of course, the West End production of the last 5 years, featuring Samantha Barks and Jonathan Bailey over 2 years ago. But that's where it all started, and since, of course, that musical was so, of course, the production was so popular, and, of course, tickets sold out almost instantly. Of course, Carrie Hope Fletcher, who, of course, you might remember, as you did see playing the lead role of Veronica Sawyer, she, of course, announced just over a few months ago, during, of course, when it came to the end of the run of course, at the Other Palace in, of course, London, that they would announce something very, very special. Like I said, of course, since I said earlier on, this musical, unbelievably, since of how much success it had, it's managed to have a deal from, of course, Bill Kenwright Limited, who, of course, is one of the producers on the show, and he decided on a deal to move, of course, the show to a West End theatre, and it's going to be performed, of course, for 12 weeks at the Theatre Royal Haymarket Theatre, just offside, of course, just opposite, of course, the Her Majesty's Theatre, where Phantom of the Opera is performed. And, of course, if you did not know how, of course, some people reacted to that, because believe it or not, guys, if you might remember, of course, if you guys are familiar with Carrie Hope Fletcher's YouTube channel, or also used to be known as It's Way Past My Bedtime, she actually did do a video, and she was asked by the production team to announce that, of course, big news, of course, at the end of one of the performances. And let me tell you something, when I first saw that for the first time, I couldn't believe that since how popular the show was, even though, of course, when tickets first went on sale, like, of course, she did say on one of her videos, they didn't just, of course, break, of course, the box office record, but also they broke the internet. It was just an instant success. And, of course, if you want to find out how, of course, the audience on that night, when, of course, Carrie Hope Fletcher announced that, here's a little quick video from her official YouTube channel of when that moment happened. And of course, if you are watching this, Carrie, this is only just for, of course, my little vlog, so don't be offended. I'm only just showing it just to see how amazing that moment was, because let me tell you something, as soon as you announced that Heathers the Musical got announced in the West End, it was making its way to the West End, literally, it went absolutely crazy in that theatre as soon as you announced it. Here's a little reminder, you guys, to all of you else watching, of when that moment once again happened.
Got my camera woman over here. Wing woman! Anyway. It's been an incredible audience tonight, thank you so much. We've definitely had big fun up here on stage with you. Yeah! So much big fun for the last couple of months doing the show. So much fun, in fact, that when tickets first went on sale, not only did we break box office records here at the Other Palace, we actually broke their website. As a result of this incredible success that Heathers has had, I have a very big secret to reveal to you tonight. You guys have the exclusive. You are the first announce on behalf of Bill Kenwright and Paul Taylor Mills that our incredible little show here at the Other Palace, Heathers, is making its way to the West End. Theatre Royal Haymarket. For 12 weeks, starting from September, and guys, better get your phones out because tickets are on sale now. It sells out pretty damn fast, so you better get your tickets straight away, and we will see you guys at Theatre Royal.
Now, wasn't that amazing, guys? What a fantastic moment, of course, when Carrie Hope Fletcher announced to, of course, the audience that were in that night, of course, for Heathers the Musical, one of the, of course, performances in the evening. And let me tell you something, I knew, of course, as soon as Carrie said that, I bet she was very, very excited, even though she was having a ball, and of course with the rest of the cast in the show. Literally, that moment, of course, them announcing the news that, of course, to even not just the rest of the cast, but even, of course, the audience on that night, that was really, really something indeed. But anyway, of course, enough about that. Now, just before we get on with today's episode, I know, of course, I am talking about and reviewing and, of course, going to see, of course, Heathers the Musical. But let me just quickly remind you guys on what it's all about. Of course, if any of you who do know it, like I said already, it's based on a very, very famous film from 1989 from New World Pictures and starring Winona Ryder and also Christian Slater, who played the role of Jason Dean. And basically, of course, Winona Ryder played the character of, once again, Veronica Sawyer, which is the part that Carrie Hope Fletcher plays in the musical. And she is loosely part of of course, an elite clique at her school, which is, of course, the Westerberg High School in America, which is fictional, believe it or not, just to remind you guys. And basically, she obviously is been part of this, and most of the girls in this clique have all, obviously, the reason why, of course, the film's called Heathers is because that the 3 members of this elite clique are all called Heather, believe it or not. So it's pretty obvious anyway. But anyway, like I've said already, she's been part of this, and sometimes the rest of the girls in the clique kind of can't stand her for being obviously very different, and they're very snobberish, the other members, but not all of them. Obviously, some people are in this clique are very, of course, sympathetic to her, and obviously do change, and then she starts to have a very close friendship with them, nevertheless. But the character of JD, like I, of course, mentioned, was played by, of course, that was, I'm trying to remember his name now. Oh, Christian Slater, there we go, it's just popped into my head now. Played by James Muscato, who is, of course, he's playing that role in the musical. He obviously is someone who got bullied quite a lot at the same school, and he relies on, of course, them wanting, of course, obviously they get sick and tired of course, he obviously has witnessed Veronica getting bullied quite a lot by the Heathers, and he almost hatches a plan to try and kill one of them, but accidentally. But and that leads to a load of other killings and making them out that they were suicides. Of course, like I was just about to mention, with this musical, it follows the same themes as the original film. So obviously talking about teenage bullying and, of course, suicide, and also homophobia and social, of course, sociopathy as well, or however you say that term anyway. But anyway, of course, the character of JD is also classified as a sociopath, and he's on of course, a plan to try and kill some of the most famous, well, I wouldn't just say famous, but of course the most popular students at the school. So, and But if you are familiar with the film, and if you have also seen, of course, the musical recently, I know that it has been very, very popular, despite, of course, how, of course, dark it sounds. But I have heard bits of the music from this production, and if you did hear that earlier on, of course, with the trailer that we played earlier on, well, you're going to hear a little bit more of it later on in this, of course, review. Well, anyway, I know that, of course, I know it may sound, of course, I know it looks a bit dark in here, but I actually am doing this before, actually, I go and see it. So, of course, we're actually going to go tomorrow, and I've already got me tickets booked. I am going with, believe it or not, my dad, John Wright. He's going to be joining me. And like I said, we're going to catch a train, of course, where I live here in Littleport. And we're going to travel all the way down to London. And then, of course, on the London Underground, on the Piccadilly line, to then be quite close to where, of course, the theatre is based. But honestly, stick around, guys, because this is going to be really, really exciting. And I know that I might be rambling on a little bit, but like I said, you don't want to miss out on what's coming up. Because not just that, after the show, and also for all of you guys who have been there already, or if you also have been seeing recently, of course, on Carrie Hope Fletcher's, of course, recent videos of vlogging, of course, her time, not just at the other palace, but also the Royal, of course, the Theatre Royal Haymarket, of course, I was going to say, theatre, for doing the musical of Heathers. That's also a load of fans, of course, that she's been meeting quite recently. Since how popular it is, a load, of course, young girls have been dressing up as the characters of Veronica, and also the Heathers of course, Heather Chandler, Heather McNamara, and Heather Duke. But not just that, I think I've even seen people even dressed up as JD as well. And believe it or not, I love, of course, dressing up, as you know. I love cosplaying, as always. But I decided at the very last minute, I've actually decided to go dressed, of course, as JD. I have got a trench coat lined up, and you won't believe how, of course, how I'll look when it comes to when we go and see the show tomorrow. But I am going to just tease you a little bit. I'm sorry, guys. I mean, but of course, I will reveal to you what I look like. And there will be pictures up of course, of my costume. Even on Instagram, believe it or not, after when I've done this video as well. And when I've been to see the show. Because I have actually put up a load of recent cosplays on my Instagram, of course, page for any of you who don't follow me there. Just to remind you, you can follow me, of course, as you can see right down at the bottom of the screen. My, of course, Instagram profile name is Jackpot Button Lewis Official, and most of the pictures that you'll see on there, there's a load of random things on there, but like I said, there is a few cosplays that I've done, and my JD one from, of course, the film Heathers, it will be the most recent one that I'll be putting on there. But anyway, of course, enough about that. Let's, of course, focus on and talk about, as well as talk about, but also go to see the long-awaited and exciting, of course, highly anticipated production of course, that is Heathers the Musical at the Theatre Royal Haymarket in London. Of course, you won't be seeing me for the rest of course, of this day filming, but of course, next time you see me, it will be Saturday morning, and of course, you'll be joining me as myself and my dad, John Wright, will go and see the show, which we're hoping to actually see later on, of course, tomorrow evening. And also, as well as that, just another little quick surprise for you guys before we move on to the next part. Of course, since I am so excited about, of course, hopefully seeing the cast, of course, especially Carrie Hope Fletcher, because I'm a huge fan of her, I have also got some very special cards, of course, to give them at stage door, because normally sometimes they do, of course, stage door at, of course, from when they do this show. And of course, Christmas just coming around in just a few months' time, I just decided to make some personalised early Christmas cards. And as well as doing one, of course, for Carrie Hope Fletcher playing the lead role of course, Veronica Sawyer, I've also done one for JD, of course, Jane Muscato, who playing him as well, and also all the Heathers. So, of course, and also, which is really cool, I've even done them in the colours of that they wear, of course, on stage. So, Heather Chandler, who wears red, and Jodie Steele will play that role. She's been playing that role quite recently. And I know you won't see this one, it's because it's quite bright, but I've also done one for Heather McNamara in yellow. I know you might not see it, but as I said, it's bright yellow. And Sophie Issacs plays that role. And also I have done one for Heather Duke, played by Tashawn Williams. But like I said already, of course, when it comes to stage door after seeing the show, hopefully I'll be able to give them all out to her. But I have heard quite recently, I just remembered this actually, of course I heard quite recently with, of course, this Saturday evening, of course, well, not Saturday evening, sorry, I do apologise, with today's evening performances on Friday, I know that Carrie Hope Fletcher has been suffering with illness quite recently, and I know she quite recently had to leave one of the shows in the West End, and one person had to take over from her because of illness. But I had heard that, I can't remember her name, but she was one of the understudies who I think initially was one of the... I'm trying to remember. I think she was one of the ensemble characters, and basically, like I said, if anyone goes sick, she stands in for that character anyway. And the lead character that I was going to say was Veronica Sawyer. So, but I can't remember her name. But if she is, of course, going to be there tomorrow, taking over Carrie, which I know would be a bit of a shame because I really have been looking forward to seeing Carrie. Because last time I saw her was, I think, back in 2014, would you believe? Yeah, 4 years ago when she done Les Miserables. And but I've never met her. I never met her in real life, and I'm really, really excited. So hopefully, fingers crossed, if she is well enough, of course, throughout getting rest, of course, from tonight. Hopefully, I will be seeing her tomorrow, and also I'd like to also say that I'm really looking forward to seeing her, because as well as of course when she's finished doing Heathers, she'll be straight on to doing another musical, but more on that of course later on. But anyway, like I said already, let's of course kick off this long-awaited episode of Series 2 of Theatregoing, as of course not just myself, Jack Wright, but also my dad, John Wright, as we travel, of course, down to London once again to see the highly anticipated West End production of the very famous Broadway musical, but now being transferred to the West End for the very first time, and it's having a lot of success as always, of Heathers the Musical. And I'll see you in a couple of minutes when we travel down to see the show. Well guys, I know you certainly weren't expecting that to just happen right now, but I have a bit of a confession to make to you now guys, and I don't like to admit it, but literally I'm like the worst person. This is like for the first time in over a year that this has happened, and that's all that I managed to get of course of footage when I went to see the production, of course the West End, long-awaited West End production of Heathers the Musical. Of course it's already November now. I went to see of course the show on the 27th of October, and we're already almost halfway through November, and I haven't had the chance to finish this vlog off since over the last few weeks, since I've been so busy. The show that I mentioned that I was going to be doing, of course, when I filmed my previous part to this vlog, it already happened just a week ago. For any of you who don't know what I was doing a production of Journey's End. If you've never heard that, it's a play based on true events written by R.C. Sheriff, and it's set in the trenches in France of the First World War. And we performed it, of course I performed it with Ely Amateur Dramatic Society, a brand new theatre group I joined. and I played the role of Riley, who's one of the young soldiers who's very excited to be fighting, and of course looking forward to his first posters fighting in the war. But of course he was quite naive, and he was kind of aloof to the horrors of war, and naturally my character does of course change throughout the play. It was quite well received, and we done 3 performances of it, and we also done it on the same week, just a few days ago, marking the centenary of the end of the First World War, and it was a very emotional week. Honestly, it was really something, and as I said, I had a lot of course, I had a lot of fun during the show, but also it was very, very moving as well because of me being a huge history buff. It was quite something, you know, to obviously have a bit of a nod back or a throwback to all those years ago, that all the amount of soldiers, young soldiers that gave their lives for us, and it was really quite something. It was a fantastic show, and I'll never forget, of course, being part of that show. I think it was one of the most amazing shows that I've ever been a part of. And even though that was my very first show that I'd done with Ely Amateur Dramatic Society, I've made a great impression to everyone there, and I've made some wonderful friends as well. And I've always wanted to do, of course, a production, a play or musical set in that era, because it was actually my favourite time in history when I was younger, when I actually took history, you know, back in my early days at school. So yeah, it was really, really something. But anyway, of course, I am sidetracking. Of course, I want to focus on, of course, this production of course, once again, of Heathers the Musical. And I do apologise for the amount of course, footage that I didn't manage to get. I know for not much footage, of course, that I managed to film on that day. But despite that, it was a fantastic show. Of course, to any of you who may not have seen, at the time when I went to go and see the show, Carrie Hope Fletcher, who played the lead role of Veronica Sawyer, she was actually ill on the day that I went to see her. But someone amazingly took over from her as an understudy, and her name was Olivia Moore, and she was absolutely incredible. She was really such a great, of course, replacement for Carrie, because obviously quite recently she has been going down with a cold, but she has made a full recovery now as of recently, which is great news. And also the rest of the cast were there. Now I do know that actually another person was absent from the cast due to illness, but I can't remember his name. But he played the role of Veronica's dad, and also I think he played, the principal character at the Westerberg High School. And so yeah, that's obviously another cast change that was there. But all the main Heathers were there, of course, Jodie Steele, Sophie, Issacs, and also Tashawn Williams. They were absolutely amazing. Unbelievably, I can also quickly say, of course, from what I remember, even though it was only just a month ago, of course, we actually, unbelievably, while we were waiting to go into the theatre, we actually saw Jodie actually, of course, arrive late, of course, to the theatre, which she doesn't normally often do. Of course, that actually became a running thing for her when she previously performed the show earlier on this year at the other Palace. And but she was amazing, and I actually was really tempted to say hello to her, because I recognised her, even though that I've never seen her in anything else. But I didn't want to distract her, of course, for doing the show. But she did say to all of us that were waiting alongside myself and my dad John to enjoy the show. But that was actually the closest that I ever got to her, sadly. Despite it being a fantastic show and everything, stage door was really, really busy. And what didn't help, of course, is since the show finished at such a late time, if you might remember going back last year when I went to see Russell Crowe's indoor garden party, his band, of course, we were watching our clocks, or of course watches, all the time, because we had to get a train, of course, from the London Underground. We had to, we actually managed to pick the last one that went through, of course, I think it was the Piccadilly line. and if we didn't get it, we'd have to wait until tomorrow morning for, of course, the next train. So it's become a curse, really. I can't believe that happened, and it was so annoying that since, of course, Stage Long took so long to of course happen, I didn't get the chance to meet all the cast, which I was really demoralised, which I know it was quite a horrible thing to go through, but I was so frustrated, but also quite upset when that happened, even though that, of course, I felt really bad to obviously go without saying, of course, compliments, because that's what I am in real life. Honestly, I really love to give compliments to people who put on a fantastic show whenever I see, of course, regardless of if they're an amateur or professional actor. I absolutely love it. It just, I think, gives them a morale boost, I should say. But despite that, though, I managed to get some merchandise from the show. As you can see, I've got right here, of course, the programme. There it is for all of you. Of course, if you've already seen the show, of course, it's absolutely beautifully made. And, of course, on the back, you have got the three Heathers, of course, Duke, of course, McNamara, and Chandler. And, of course, were played by Jodie, Sophie, and Tashan. And they beautifully recreated of course, the logo to the musical. It did look absolutely amazing. But despite that, of course, I managed to get quite a few autographs from the show. And I'm just actually going through the programme just now, so I can show you how. Here we go. I did manage to get a few, of course, autographs from, of course, the cast. I managed to meet one of the, of course, the cast, one of the main cast members. Funny enough, actually, most of the ensemble were as good as the, of course, the main principal cast. But they were incredible, every single one of them. Even though, of course, Olivia Moore, who of course took over from Carrie as Veronica, she actually plays an understudy role, but actually she done a superb job nevertheless. And I managed to get most of the autographs from, of course, the cast. I got Nathan Amazie, who was Ram's dad, Big Bud, and Coach Ripper. He was amazing, very funny indeed. I also got Brandon Lee Sears, who stood in for someone else who played that role of Officer McCord and Preppy Stud. Of course, someone else called Sergio Pasqualio actually played that role originally, but he left the show quite recently, so I didn't get the chance to see him there. Also, I've got Rebecca Locke, who played Veronica's mum, and also Miss Fleming, the teacher. She was amazing. She had a fantastic voice, honestly. She was absolutely amazing, and it was wonderful to meet her as well. She actually, as of recently, she's just left the show now to do another musical called Kiss Me Kate. She's already started rehearsals for that. And also, from the autographs that I managed to get 4 in total. I managed to get one of the Heathers, and that was Tashan Williams, who played Heather Duke. And I could just quickly show you, I also had, of course, her autograph, and she managed to sign it. Oh, there we go. I went a bit too low there. Of course, there's her autograph in green, her trademark colour, of course, of in the show as Heather Duke. And also, I completely forgot to mention, of course, earlier on in this vlog, that since, of course, Christmas is just round the corner, of course, we are in November, and, of course, December is getting very close now, of course, the month of Christmas. I actually made some very special early Christmas cards to give out to the main cast members of course, Carrie, and also Jane Muscato, who played JD. And also, of course, the Heathers, of course, Jodie and Tashan, and also Sophie. I managed to give my card to Tashan, and she absolutely was really touched. She loved also my JD, of course, cosplay, which you will be seeing at the end of this video. I actually wore a all in black, not this t-shirt, by the way, but I wore a long sleeve one because it was really cold when we went to London that time when we went to see the show. Even just before Halloween, actually, since it was obviously the 27th of October. But, of course, the following week, obviously, would have been Halloween. and yeah, she absolutely loved it. She didn't just love my cosplay, but as soon as I gave her card, she gave me a hug, and that was really, really sweet of her to do that. And but I managed to, for one of the security guards there, who was obviously keeping in, of course, keeping everybody in of course, check at stage door, I managed to ask him if he could pass on the other cards to the other cast members, even though I never got a chance to see them. So, but hopefully they have got them right now, and I hope they do appreciate, of course, what they got. And but yeah, I don't know what to say really. To be quite honest, it was really quite an amazing show, Heathers the Musical, and I found it very funny and also moving at times because of all the themes it touches about, even though it is a musical and it's humorous at times, but it's also got a dark, you know, twist to it, obviously, focusing on the themes, of course, and issues of bullying and also suicide. And so yeah, it had got a very poignant message to it, and it really hit me as well. I wouldn't say I never would have admitted that I would want to commit suicide, because I don't suffer from depression or anything, but I did get bullied quite a lot when I was younger at school, and to be quite honest, I think the character of JD actually was a very appropriate character, obviously, for me to dress up as. Because not just he looked really cool in the trench coat, but he did look quite something in, of course, being in all black, obviously, showing his personality and everything. But he was amazing, though, Jamie. Also, I can just quickly say, also, when I saw the show at the curtain call, I had the best time of my life. It was the cheering from the audience. Literally, it may not have been a sellout, but I couldn't believe how much shouting and cheering and screaming there was in that theatre. It just came alive at the end of the show. It really, really was something. And oh goodness me, oh, I'm terribly sorry. I'm getting all emotional here. It was one of the best theatre experiences I've ever had. And I couldn't be any more thankful for all the cast in the show to deliver such an amazing performance. It was really, really special. Oh God. Give me 1 second, guys. Oh, bloody hell. This is the first time you're ever seeing me get emotional from when I go and see a show. I think more emotional when I went to see The Last 5 Years, just 2 years ago in the West End. But anyway, I am so grateful to have seen the show, and I couldn't thank you, of course, thank the cast, I should say, for putting on such a fantastic show. And yeah, it was very, very moving, and it would be definitely a show I will definitely see again if it ever came around again. And just to quickly remind you guys, of course, if you haven't seen the show yet, it is still going. Of course, there's only going to be 14 more days, of course. Oh, that was 15, I meant to say. There we go, that's 10 and 4, 14. Of course, shows left of before the show closes on the 27th of November. And if you have not seen it yet, do go and see it, because it was an incredible musical. I can't believe that even though that it's already, of course, came from Broadway from a few years ago, and now it's here in the West End, of course. Well, not exactly here, but like what I was going to say, of course, in the West End of London. It has become a real phenomenon, and I never would have thought it would ever be a show that would touched so many people, but also what is in it is just astonishing. And also another great thing to also mention is that also quite recently Carrie Hope Fletcher, once again, who does play the role of Veronica Sawyer currently, of course, since she's just come back from illness, she did win a few awards for her character of Veronica Sawyer, playing, of course, obviously winning awards, of course, for the best actor in a role, and of course, and even in a particular musical or even play, and I couldn't be any more happy for her. Honestly, she is a very talented young lady, and even though I missed out on seeing her, I hopefully in the future. Well, definitely, actually, I've got something very, very special to mention, of course. I do know that she is going to be in another show after when she's left Heathers. She's already started rehearsals already for it, and I am so excited that I've already booked tickets way back from a few months ago because of how popular they were. Of course, she will be reprising the role of Beth Parson Nathaniel's wife in Jeff Wayne's musical version of The War of the Worlds, of course, which is coming back after popular demand from 4 years ago when it had its final tour here in the UK, but of course, back by popular demand, and also this year with the album when it came out in 1978, of course, which unbelievably is 40 years old, would you believe, which is incredible. This year, of course, it marks its 40th anniversary of when the album was released, and to celebrate, of course, the show will, of course, once again be going on tour to celebrate those 40 years, and I'm really excited to seeing, of course, that show, because I've only just discovered it from a few years ago, obviously being good friends with the local, of course, actor herself, of Kerry Ellis, who actually played that role of Beth, of course, on the New Generation, of course, version of the show, which was recorded a few years ago. And if it wasn't for her being in the show, I wouldn't have heard about it. And it is, when I first watched the DVD, I've already got it, of course, and I've watched it a few times. It is just astonishing. I know I wasn't even around when the album first came out, but it was an incredible, of course, show to watch. And to hear the music, it was really terrifying. It was actually obviously based on the novel from H.G. Wells, and obviously it's setting it in the same era of where it's set, because normally a load of film adaptations which I have watched, they have Americanized the story and have even taken bits out or even ever included anything that resembles anything that was mentioned in the original novel. So, but I'm really, really excited. I can't wait for it, honestly. I do apologise also if the reason why I'm speaking like this, it's as I said, I'm quite elated, you know, because I've been listening back on the when unbelievably I accidentally recorded the show, of course, on my phone, and I honestly thought I turned it on. I turned it off. Sorry, I do apologise, but I couldn't believe it, and to have that memory of hearing all the songs. Even though it wasn't in visual form, and to hear all the, you know, the cheering in between in parts, it was really something. And to hear, of course, the cheering and everything going on at the end, it was really, really something at the curtain call. Also, I completely forgot to also mention that when they came on to do the curtain call, Jamie Muscato saw me dressed up as him, and he gave me a smile. We actually made eye contact, which was incredible. And also Sophie Issacs also waved to me as well when I was singing along, and of course I shouted "Love you, Jamie." Of course, not in, of course, you know, like, and passionately, but you know, he was just such an amazingly talented actor. And I do remember seeing him, of course, do other things. He actually appeared in the film version of Les Miserables as a student. He also has played the role of a student in the 25th anniversary production from over, I think, about 8 years ago. Yeah, you wouldn't believe that was about 8 years ago, when he was really, really young, and he played one of the students of the ABC Cafe, one of the revolutionaries. and he has changed so much. He has done so much since I last saw him, so but I couldn't be any more happy for him, and he's a very talented young man, and a brilliant singer, and he's the perfect companion to be with Carrie on stage, and they really do get on very well with each other. I know there's a real bond obviously between them, as of course, even though they're two completely different characters in the show, but in real life outside of the show they're as close as ever. They're not exactly boyfriend and girlfriend, because I do know Carrie obviously has got a boyfriend called Oliver Ormondson, who I know I've been keeping up to date with what Carrie's been up to over the last few weeks or so doing the show. And by the way, guys, if you are as passionate about the musical, or of course if you love what she does, she has also, if I have not said already earlier on in this vlog, she has got her own YouTube channel under the name Carrie Hope Fletcher. She used to be called It's Way Past My Bedtime when she started a few years ago. But I have been watching all the vlogs that she has done, or Veronica vlogs as she calls them, for her time when she's done the show, when she was doing the show, from the other palace to over the last few weeks at the, of course, at the Theatre Royal Haymarket. And she just recently also celebrated her, I think it was a 27th, oh, no, not 27th, I think it was 25th birthday or 26th. I don't know. It was so long ago, but I do know that she did have her birthday quite recently, before I even went to see the show, and that was really something. Honestly, as I said, I couldn't believe that she just had a birthday just before I actually went to see the show. That was really something. But I do apologise for rambling on, and I know this is a little bit unusual for me to do this, but that's all I've got time for, of course, in this episode of Theatregoing. I know, of course, it's a bit of a shame to end this video on a bit of a downer, but I couldn't do anything about it, which is a real shame. But before we go, I would just like to, of course, say once again a huge thank you to all the cast, and also all of the as I said, I've already said the cast of Heathers, and to everyone who's been a big part of the show, and I know that in just a few weeks' time it will be ending, but fingers crossed, hopefully, if it ever comes back, if it would possibly tour, I would definitely go and see it again. And to also as well, I can also mention, it's now that time, of course, in this episode for me to review this show, and of course I've just been talking about it right now, aside from, of course, what happened when I went there. But if I had to give this, of course, this show a rating, I honestly think it has been the most astonishing show that I've ever seen. The experience as a whole, I have never enjoyed myself so much, and I am so grateful to have been there, of course, just 6 rows from the front. That's where I sat in the theatre, and it was a beautiful theatre, a beautiful venue, and everything about the show was amazing. And I would most definitely give it, once again, just like, of course, for the second time, of course, in this series, I would give it a first class and a 5 stars out of 5 rating, because with, of course, how popular it has been, and the ratings and, of course, reviews of this show still get better and better. It's been peppered with 4 stars and 5-star reviews. It has become a phenomenon over Twitter over the last few months, and if you have not seen it yet, please do yourself a favour, before it closes in just a few weeks' time, go and see it, because it's the most amazing show that I've ever seen, and it would be an absolute killer to miss out on, if you see what I mean, of course, by obviously the amount of course, deaths that are in the show. It's even though, like I said, it was pretty dark. Well, anyway, once again, I do apologise for rambling on, but as I said, I can't believe this has happened again, but hopefully this will be the last and, of course, only time this happens again, of course, since from last year. But I hope you, of course, you enjoyed this episode of Theatregoing, and once again, of course, we have reached the end of another episode of course, of my theatre blog series once again. Of course, we'll have to once again pull the curtain down on another episode. But despite, of course, you know, me being, of course, you don't normally see me, of course, be like this, of course, when I've been to see a show. But I know it's been a month since I saw it once again. And I know that I do feel really, really, of course, bad for doing this at such a late time. And I do thoroughly apologise for doing this, but to, of course, once again, to finish off this episode, I actually managed to send quite recently a Instagram post when I went to see the show of Heathers the Musical, and this is what I actually said, of course, on Instagram, of course, the night, or actually from the early hours of when I came back, and of course, actually, if I had not said earlier, I actually came back really late with my dad. We had a late train back home, and I sadly couldn't finish this vlog off because at the time that when we got back, my mum and dad were straight to bed, and obviously when I do these videos, my voice is pretty loud, and sometimes to speak quietly at such a late time in the morning, it would have been very difficult. So, but anyway, this is of course what I did actually say about the show. Just of course a few hours after when I went to see, of course, Heathers the Musical here on Instagram. Just came back from a very tiring and emotional theatre trip seeing Heathers the Musical at Theatre Royal Haymarket tonight. The most rocking, moving and touching musical I have ever seen. Olivia Mora's Veronica Sawyer taking over a very ill Carrie Hope Fletcher was incredible, physically and vocally. Sorry that I couldn't see you after the show. Stage door. Had a very important last-minute train to catch. Jamie Muscato was unbelievable as JD. Thanks for noticing my cosplay of you at the curtain call tonight. And the Heathers needed no introduction here. And oh, sorry. I read that wrong. I've got a few things in my eyes. I think I'm tearing up again. I'm sorry, guys. All of them were unique, very funny, and most definitely sassy at times. Sophie, Issacs, Jodie Steele, you both had me howling with laughter tonight. And Jodie, I loved you. Oh, I loved that you saw me about... Oh. I loved you... I'm sorry, guys. I loved that you saw me about to enter the theatre before the show, and Sophie, you waved to me at the curtain call, which I wasn't expecting at all. To Sean Williams, thank you so much for your compliment on my JD cosplay outfit tonight, and hug for the early birthday card I gave you earlier. Hope that Carrie, Jamie, Jodie and Sophie all get theirs soon. Show review and story video to follow soon. By the way, Rebecca Locke, you can certainly wail as a gospel singer. And I've said a few hashtags as well if you have actually seen the post, if you do follow me on of course Twitter. Well, not Twitter, I'm sorry, oh goodness me, I can't think tonight since I'm so emotional, but I would just like to say once again, I can't thank you enough to the cast of Heathers. It's one of the most amazing theatre experiences I've ever had, and I don't think anything else will top that. But or maybe I could be mistaken when I go and see, of course, Jeff Wayne's musical version of The War of the Worlds, of course, in December next month. But that's obviously still a while away yet. But like I said, that is it for this episode of course, Theatregoing. And before we go, also, this is actually the very first time that I have done this, of course, on any episode of Theatregoing. But here's a little taste of what to expect, of course, what you're going to be expecting next time on the next episode of my Theatre blog series. Here's a little taste of what's going to be happening on the next episode of Theatregoing. Next time on Theatregoing.
Hi, I'm Jungle Jane.
And dance.
I lived in the jungle for 10 years. Why don't you jump on a giraffe and make your way to Raveroo?
Good times are knocking at the door. Sun is shining. Sun is shining.
Come on, rock and swing. You got it. Let everybody sing.
Sun is shining. Every time I wake up smiling. Good times are knocking at the door.
Let everybody sing.
My hands are a jumping, my bones are a bumping. I'm rocking and ready to roll. I'm feeling outrageous. This smile is contagious. My body is out of control. It's a new day, looking good and feeling today.
Yes, guys, I know that, of course, as I'm finally cheered up, of course, while watching that, while you may have just been seeing that right now. Over a year ago, I went to, of course, this incredible, of course, family-friendly rave event called Raveroo over a year ago in May. And also, as well, of course, if you did not know, for me being a huge fan of the very famous children's pop music act of Go Go Go, of course, if you have not seen quite recently that this year is actually their 10th year of being around, would you believe? Isn't that incredible? And of course, in early celebration of course, them celebrating their 10th anniversary, I have actually done both a podcast and also live video stream of doing their dance routines and talking about the history of the band, playing all of their songs from over the last 10 years. And if you haven't watched them right now, I will post a link to, of course, both those videos in, of course, the description box below on this video, so you can go and have a watch. And also as well, guys, if you, like I said already, if you have not seen the show of Heathers the Musical, please do go and see it, because, as I said, it might be your last chance to see it. And honestly, I think that the show, since it came from Broadway just a few years ago, it has definitely found a place in the real heart, of course, of West End theatre. And it's been absolutely incredible. Especially, I can't believe that just over a few months ago that Carrie Hope Fletcher herself would announce, since there has been so much success with the musical, with Bill Kenwright obviously being one of the main people producing and of course being part of the show, she would announce that it's going to be transferred to the West End. Still, to that very day when she mentioned it, like I showed you earlier on in this video, I couldn't believe that happened. And to obviously go back to when she mentioned that, as soon as she mentioned that at the other palace, of course, theatre in London, to the audience that were literally, it was a complete sellout. It was literally, the house was full of course, when the theatre was full of people, and it was sold out on the night when she announced that it was going to be transferred to the West End. The mood, of course, and just that moment when it happened, it was just, you know, the theatre just filled with euphoria, like I mentioned earlier on in this vlog, and it was just an incredible moment. And I just hope that, of course, with the success that the musical has had over here quite recently, I hope it will make a triumphant return, even though that it's going to be finishing in just a few weeks' time. But anyway, I am going to leave you now, of course, with and of course, I know you won't be able to see it in visual form, but I actually managed to keep, of course, the last few minutes of course, of the curtain call when I accidentally, of course, recorded the end of when I went to see Heathers. And I'll see you very, very soon. Oh, actually, believe it or not, also as well, I've actually got a big surprise lined up for my good friends from Go Go Go, Carl Tracy, and also Holly Atherton, and also Jade Natalie. But also there is a brand new member that just joined quite recently called Amy Cooper, who I'm really excited to meet very, very soon. And of course, I'm really looking forward to celebrating their 10th anniversary at Raveroo. It will be their 3rd year they've performed there, would you believe, which is incredible, since their very first performance, I think, was actually on the 28th, I think, of February. And that was just a few days after Jade Natalie's actual birthday. So that was quite something. And like I said, obviously it was a new, of course, look to, of course, the band, and their music completely changed. But you will all be seeing all of that, and also someone very special who you might remember, who I interviewed, of course, on my Radio Go 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 back in the day, a 10-year anniversary celebration podcast. Of the character of Mr. Baffled, who hasn't been part of the band for a long, long time. I'm actually hoping to bring him back to be part of the celebrations, and I will be dressing up as him as well, but I'm going to kind of do a little, of course, modern electro twist on his outfit. I'm still keeping, of course, his steampunk goggles and, of course, the waistcoat, which I wore, of course, on my live video stream. But that's all I'm going to say. I'm not going to give you anything else about it. It's all going to be a surprise when I go and see them. Of course, actually, just later on this week, actually, since it's already the, I think it's, hang on, it is the 15th, oh no, sorry, the 14th of November. And yeah, of course, they're going to be doing their show on the 17th of November. So this weekend on Saturday. And I initially, of course, there's 2 sessions of Raveroo that happen, of course, of the event on particular dates. But unfortunately, I can't make the first session because tickets sold out quite quickly, which was a bit annoying. But I did go to the 2nd session last year, if you did actually see my video, which my dad, John, of course, filmed when I dressed up as my friend Carl, of course. in the band when I went there last year. And I also did dress up as him for when I actually done a dance routine to one of my favourite songs from the band, which is Back in the Day. And if you have not seen that either, there's also a link to that as well. And do check it out, because honestly, I really enjoyed doing it. Because actually on the day when I filmed it last year, it was actually just before my good friend, once again from the band of Go 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 Electro, of course, Holly Atherton, just recently celebrated her birthday, because she actually celebrated on Guy Fawkes Night, of all days, would you believe? And actually at that time when, of course, that happened, I was actually doing one of the shows, of course, or actually the first few important rehearsals of course show week of for Journey's End. But anyway, I'm off on one now. I think I'll have to go and rest up and still keep on of course getting a little bit emotional about the show, but it's time to move on, just like even the name of one of the songs from Go 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 in the past. And of course, I look forward to seeing you once again when, of course, next time on Theatregoing, I will be heading to the family rave event, of course, Raveroo, a Ministry of Sound super club in London. And join me, of course, very, very soon, for we're going to be having a real raving time. And definitely, you certainly don't want to miss out on it. But anyway, thank you very much for watching this, of course, elongated, of course, episode of Theatregoing. And once again, until next time, au revoir, adios, au wiedersehen. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you very, very soon. But to play us out, here's, of course, the little, of course, bit of a recording of the audio, of course, recording of the of the curtain call of Heathers the Musical. And once again, if you have not seen the show, I dare you to go and see it, because it's not going to be around for much longer. Anyway, thank you very much for watching, and once again, I'll see you very, very soon. See you next time. Goodbye. By the way, guys, I know that I didn't get the chance to show this earlier on in my episode of Theatregoing, but this was the outfit that I wore as playing Jason Dean in Heathers the Musical. As if you're interested in how I actually made this costume, as you can see, I've got a dark trench coat, black trench coat, which, believe it or not, was a Burberry one from London. Of course, the brand, and my dad actually owned this way before I was even born, believe it or not, guys. I know, it's pretty strange, isn't it? It's quite surreal. And then I just wore some basic trousers. I know, obviously, it's a bit weird, obviously, showing them off, of course, in the bathroom here when I normally show off my costume. And also these really cool boots as well, which I have these toe cap boots. They don't have steel in them, like they're not like proper construction boots, but I got these from Marks and Spencer online. I can't remember how much they cost, but I've had these for quite a few years, and they are absolutely amazing. And like I said, of course, like I said, this is I know it's a last minute cosplay, but I was very proud to do it. And I know that, of course, my hair I've had done by my mum, who's a fantastic hairstylist, and normally a lot more better than I am. But yeah, this was definitely one cosplay I really loved, of course, doing. And don't forget, guys, this, of course, cosplay has 2 pictures of me wearing this outfit on my Instagram page, of course, which is Jackpot Button Lewis Official. So do check them out. Of course, my dad took the photos before I went to see the show, and they look fantastic, honestly. And I managed to get my hands on a proper revolver, not similar to the one that Christian Slater used in the film, but it was close enough anyway. But yeah, I'm still very, very proud of this cosplay, and this is not the last time I'll be dressing up as JD, most definitely, for sure. So he may, of course, be a bad boy character, but as you know me, I love playing bad boy characters. So there we go, that's my cosplay of Jason Dean from the film and musical version of Heathers. And I'll see you in the next video, guys. Take care, everybody.